Tall Tales, it is time for our gathering. So today we will sing our song, we will have a question, story, answers, poem, activity, and stickers. So let's start with our song. We're still going to sing the same song that we have been singing this week. We sang it on Monday and Tuesday, and it's called The Farmer Plants the Seeds. The farmer plants the seeds, the farmer plants the seeds. Hi-ho the dairy-o, the farmer plants the seeds. The sun begins to rise, the sun begins to rise. Hi-ho the dairy-o, the sun begins to rise. The rain begins to fall, the rain begins to fall. Hi-ho the dairy-o, the rain begins to fall. The plants begin to sprout, the plants begin to sprout. Hi-ho the dairy-o, the plants begin to sprout. The farmer picks the crops, the farmer picks the crops. Hi-ho the dairy-o, the farmer picks the crops. We all sit down to eat, we all sit down to eat. Hi-ho the dairy-o, we all sit down to eat. And that's the end. We sing that song because it kind of connects to springtime and it connects to what we're doing in the garden. Hopefully later this week I'll have another update on the garden for you, maybe tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then next week. Okay, let's check off our song. Now it's time for our question. So today is going to be one of my favorite questions. It's one that we do all the time. It is, what happens next? How many words is what happens next? See, what happens next? 1, 2, 3. So it's 3 words. We need 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. It starts with the word what. So we know that it is a question. So we're going to add a question mark at the end. It's a hook, line, and a dot. The first word is what. We know that that is spelled W-H-A-T. Happens. That's H. Hap. Well, let's do the ending sound first. Happens. That's an S. And in the middle we hear hap. P. Happen. N. Let's go back to the beginning. That's an A. And I know that there are 2 P's in the word happens, and there's also an E. What happens next? It's an N. Next. That's a T. In the middle we hear next. That is an X. And then also there is a n, that is an E. What happens next? So what do you think that the characters in our celebrated book will do at the end of the story? Okay, so let's go ahead and read our celebrated book, and then you will have a chance to answer the question. Little Mouse's painting by Diane Wolkstein, and pictures are by Mary Jane Begin. This is the title page. It says Little Mouse's Painting, as the author and then the illustrator. And this book was published by Morrow Jr. Books in New York. Little Mouse lived in her own pretty house under the earth. She had a sweet-smelling bed made of pine wood and honeysuckle vines, a small braided rug, and a painting by her grandmother that hung on the wall over her cupboard. Every day Little Mouse ate her breakfast of berries and nuts, made her bed, and went up the steps to visit her friends. Bear, Squirrel, and Porcupine were Little Mouse's friends. Some days she picked berries and nuts with Bear. "Ho, ho!" Bear would shout whenever he found a particularly fine patch of berries. "Ah, ah!" he would sigh as he happily ate them. Some days Little Mouse was invited to Squirrel's treehouse and had tea and crackers and flowers. Squirrel loved flowers. Sometimes he arranged them carefully in acorn cups, and sometimes he ate them. Other days, Little Mouse went for long walks with Porcupine. Porcupine never walked in a straight line, but wandered from one side of the path to the other. She'd often stop to look at something closely and say, "Oh, look at that stone! Just look at that stone!" Or, "Look at that cloud! Just look at that cloud!" Then Little Mouse would also pause and examine the stone or quietly stare at the cloud. But one evening, even though she liked to see her friends, Little Mouse decided she would do something by herself. She decided she would make a painting. The next morning, Little Mouse set up her grandmother's easel near a blueberry bush and began to paint. The sun shone on her. She made long, thin strokes. She made short, thick strokes. She painted all morning, singing as she worked, and only stopped from time to time for a snack of berries. By afternoon, her painting was finished. As she was looking at it, she heard thump, thump, thump. It was Bear. Little Mouse hid behind a tree. "Ho, ho!" cried the bear. "That's a beautiful painting. A bear must have painted that painting." "No," cried Little Mouse, coming out from behind the tree. "I did." "You?" asked Bear, surprised. "Yes, me." "Well, I like the bear in the middle of the painting." "It's not a bear. It's a blueberry bush." "It's a bear." "It's a blueberry bush." "Where?" cried Squirrel from his tree. Squirrel looked from Bear to the painting and said, "What bear? What berry? That's a squirrel." "Where? What squirrel?" cried Bear and Little Mouse together. Squirrel pointed to the bottom of the painting. "No," said Little Mouse, shaking her head. "That's a daisy." "A daisy? That's a squirrel." "It's a daisy." "Stop!" shouted Bear. "Let's go see Porcupine. She's sure to know." Bear thumped along carrying the easel, Squirrel raced ahead with the paintbrushes, and Little Mouse went the slowest, for she was holding the painting. When they arrived at Porcupine's house, Bear called, "Porcupine, please come out. We have something important to show you." Porcupine came out of her house and saw Bear, Squirrel, and Little Mouse staring at a painting, which they had placed under an elm tree. She stared too. Then she said, "Look at that porcupine! Just look at that porcupine!" "What porcupine? Where?" cried Squirrel, Bear, and Little Mouse. "There," Porcupine said, pointing to the top of the painting. "No, no," the others shouted. "That's a bear. That's a squirrel." "No, no," Little Mouse cried. But no one paid any attention to her. So she said to the elm, "Perhaps you would like to know what I think." "Yes, good. Then I'll tell you. The sun is at the top, the blueberry bush is in the middle, and the daisy with the leaf is at the bottom." I know. How do I know? I know because I painted it." "Well, now," said Porcupine, "I think I'll take a closer look." Porcupine went up very close to the painting. "Look!" she cried. Squirrel went up very close to the painting. "A flower and a leaf! How yummy!" he said. Then Bear went up to the painting. "Ho, ho!" he shouted. "The blueberry bush! I see the blueberry bush! From close up, I can see the blueberry bush!" "And I can see the sun's rays!" cried Porcupine. "Do you know, I think the blueberry bush looks a lot like you, Bear." Sighed Bear, quite pleased. "It's a beautiful painting," said Squirrel. "Leave it here for us to look at," said Porcupine. Little Mouse left her painting on the easel all day, but when the stars came out, she rolled it up, picked up her grandmother's easel, and carried the painting and the easel and the paintbrushes to her house. Little Mouse hung the painting on the wall opposite of her bed. She sat on her bed and she looked at the painting. She walked around her room and looked at it from many different places. She sat on her rug. She jumped up onto her cupboard and she sat on her bed again. Then she said, "Bear is right. When I sit on my bed far from the painting, the blueberry bush does look like Bear. But when I am close to the painting, the blueberry bush looks just like the blueberry bush." Little Mouse ate her supper of berries and nuts. She drank a glass of water and she tucked herself into bed. From her bed, she looked at her painting of bear, squirrel, and porcupine. Then she closed her eyes, smiled happily, and said, "Good night, squirrel. Good night, porcupine. Good night, bear. Good night, my friends. I'm glad you are all in my painting." And Little Mouse fell asleep. Soon she began to dream, and in her dream she saw clouds, trees, and stones, all of which looked a little like Bear, Squirrel, Porcupine, and Little Mouse. And that is the end. Okay, Swallowtails, so we have read our celebrated book, and our question was, what happens next? So what do you think the characters in our story do next? So there's Bear, Porcupine, Mouse, and Squirrel. What do you think they all do next? Okay, you can have your parents write the comments in the bottom of the video and I can read them later. I really love to see comments on my videos because then I know that you actually were able to watch it and that makes me feel happy. Okay, let's see what we do next. We done question, story, answers. Let's do our poem of the day and then our activity. So Miss Claudia said during morning meeting that today is April the 16th. So let's go to that page. It is a new page. Okay. April 16th. This poem is called Voices of Water. The water in the rain says tick, tick, tick. The water in the sleet says slush. The water in the ice says crick, crick, crack. The water in the snow says hush. The water in the sink says slush, slush. The water in the tap says drip. The water in the bath says wash, wash. The water in the cup says sip. The water in the pool says splish, splash. The water in the stream says trill. The water in the sea says crish, crash. The water in the pond stays still. The water in the soil says sow, sow. The water in the cloud says give. The water in the plant says grow, grow. The water in the world says live. That's a nice poem. It's written by Tony Mitton. And this is the illustration. Okay, so that was our poem of the day. You can think about how that poem made you feel, what you think it's talking about, and maybe you can type that in the comments too if you want to tell me how you feel about that poem. Okay, so now it's time for our activity. And we are actually going to do our activity outside. So for this, you will probably need to go outside too. You could do it after the video, and then you could follow along with the video when you are outside. Okay, let's go. Swallowtails. So we are outside to do our activity from gathering. Sometimes when we're on the playground at school, I challenge you to make a magical potion, and I send you on a scavenger hunt for all the ingredients. So today we're actually going to do the same thing. I'm going to tell you what you need to find, and then you're going to put it together at home, and your potion is going to give you some sort of magical power. So you get to decide what kind of magical power your potion is going to give you. So let me show you what you need to collect. And I found all of these things on the playground, so you'll probably be able to find all of these things in your backyard. So The first thing that you need to find, like always when you make a potion at school, you need a Y-shaped stick. And that's what you're going to use to stir up your potion, okay? You need, let's see, a plant that still has its roots on it. So I pulled this out of the ground, the roots came up too. You will need oak galls. My mask keeps falling down. Oak galls. So we've talked about these before at school. These have small wasps inside, but these ones that are old, so the wasps have come out. You'll need an oak gall or an acorn. If you can't find an oak gall, an acorn will work too. You need a brown leaf. This one's kind of crumbled up. You need a stone. It does not matter what size. You will need a green leaf. You should be able to find that pretty easy. You'll need some heart-shaped leaves. Let's see. And some tree bark. And you'll break that up inside your bowl. And I was able to collect a bowl from outside. It's kind of dirty because it's on our playground. So you collect all of those things, put it in your bowl, mix it up, and it'll give you a special power. And I want you to tell me what your special power is, okay? I hope you have fun making your potion. It's really fun to make them at school sometimes. If you decide to add a different ingredient, let me know and tell me what your special power is. So that's the end of gathering today. It is time for you to give yourself a sticker, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I cannot wait to see you, and I'll see you later. Bye.